While the Gateron Brown and Kailh Creams are on the opposite ends of the keyboard switch spectrum, I thought this video was warranted given I wanted to see this video myself when I purchased my GMMK a few months ago. So your modular keyboard just showed up and you're wondering if it's even worth spending the extra money to get a more expensive switch like the Kailh Creams. There are plenty of other videos on the internet where you can see all the geeky details about the different switches, but I'm going to dumb it down for you in this video. Gateron Browns are tactile, which essentially means you're going to hit a bump before you get to the bottom. The amount of force to actuate the key, which is what your PC recognizes as a key press, is 45 grams at 2mm, and to hit the very bottom you need to apply 50 grams at 4mm. It costs about 35 USD on the glorious website for a pack of 120 Gateron Brown switches, but I'm sure you can find them cheaper elsewhere. In comparison, Kailh Creams are a linear switch, so the amount of force you're going to apply is going to steadily increase instead of more like a bump. The actuation force is 55 grams at 2mm and 70 grams at 4mm. Now, having been accustomed to my Gateron Browns for quite a few months, I was really surprised at how much of an impact the extra force required made on my typing experience with the Kailh Creams. On paper, the force to actuate the Kailhs is 22% more and 40% more to bottom out. It doesn't sound like much, but I genuinely felt a bit of pain in my fingers after a while when typing on the Kailhs. Now, to be fair, I kind of got used to typing with pressing the keys all the way in on my Gaterons, but a lot of other people's technique is to tap the key just enough to actuate it, not pressing the key all the way in, so that certainly makes quite a big difference to how much force you're going to actually have to apply. If you are already used to your Gateron Browns, then it is going to be a little bit of a learning curve to get used to a different switch, particularly this one. Now, in all honesty, the biggest selling point to me about the Creams was its sound. The crispy and clean clicks were just quite satisfying to my ear, so here's a little sound test. Now, I know this is pretty subjective, whether one is better than the other, that's just your personal opinion, but personally there is something about the Kailhs that is too nice to ignore. A couple of extra things to note is that the Creams aren't transparent like the Gaterons, so they'll affect the RGB on your keyboard to a certain extent, as you can see in the video. The Kailh Creams are considered scratchy switches, which I didn't really notice. I'm not a self-proclaimed keyboard enthusiast or anything. I'm kind of new to this whole thing. I don't really have an issue with the scratchiness of it, particularly because they're lubed, but there are other videos that again go into more detail about this sort of thing, but from my experience, I didn't notice it, so a lot of you probably wouldn't notice this sort of thing either. With that being said, the only thing that the scratchiness affects is the sound, and I've already said I quite like the sound, so it's all up to personal preference whether or not you do or don't like that sound. So the three main points I really took away from this whole thing: 1, the Kailhs are considerably harder to press. 2, the Kailhs are obviously double the price, and that's quite a big deal. And 3, they sound better than the Gateron Browns, in my opinion. Now, would I say they are worth it? If you don't mind that they're more expensive, and you also don't mind that they're harder to press down, then go for it. You can't really go wrong. But with that being said, this test did give me a newly found appreciation for my Gateron Browns. As long as you've lubed them, they're actually really good. And I also think you'll be really satisfied keeping them as your default switches on your keyboard.